Never got one about that.
All right, it is 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call our meeting to order. If you have a cell phone, please silence it. I think our visitors have signed in on our sign-in sheet. Thank you. We usually start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Darcy Kaplan. Here. Angel Brown.
Here.
Jenny Slows. Jasper DeChristopher.
Here.
Tara Shields.
Here.
Keith Gosha. Ray Armstrong.
I will read our adopt policy since we have some visitors. In addition, we are live on Facebook, just so everybody's aware. Adopted policy of the Berlin Township Zoning Commission is that each applicant or agenda item will be given 10 minutes, or at the discretion of the chairperson to make a formal presentation. Chair will allow questions from the commission members in order to provide a timely and orderly discussion of business for the consideration. Finally, audience members will be given up to 3 minutes, or at the discretion of the chairperson to respond. Chairperson may limit repetitive debate, and all comments from the audience must be addressed to the chairperson. Can we verify this meeting was advertised, Lisa?
Yes, on May 12, 2025, on the township website, and May 13, 2025, on the township Facebook page.
We have meeting minutes from our meeting on May 13th. I'd like to accept a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion to approve.
In a second.
Okay, Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Kaplan?
Yes.
Mr. DeChristopher?
Yes.
Ms. Shields?
So we have before us the development plan designated as BZC 24-006 filed by Drees Homes, 211 Grandview Drive, Fort Mitchell, Kentucky 41017. This applicant is requested to amend the side yard setback requirements to allow for more side entrance garages. Parcel in question is currently zoned FR1 and has received preliminary approval for rezoning to R1.85 with PRD overlay. Parcel is 62.177 acres, number 4183100104700, south of Cheshire Road and west of Pirate Road, 2338 Cheshire Road, Delaware, Ohio, 115. Go ahead.
Well, good evening, I'm Todd Ferris Planning and Design. With me is Mason Ward, Drees Homes. Do a little bit of handout, just nothing really different than what you have in your book. I just figured I'd pull out the ones that changed and not to go through the entire book. To make things a little easier. And then Mason had put together a little slideshow presentation that we had presented originally to the trustees that I'm going to go ahead and hand out to you guys as well. So you can see what they saw. And if you guys want a copy of these, so I'll start this off with a little bit of hey, how are you? Good, here. Drees Homes, obviously, is not a local builder. This is their actual first foray into the whole Ohio market, is it not?
Just Columbus.
Just Columbus, but that's pretty big to break into a new market. So, okay. Central Ohio. Central Ohio. Well, we're closer to Columbus than near Cincinnati. So this is their first foray here. They've been looking for opportunities. They obviously saw this site and became interested in it. So they're in contract currently, and they have proceeded forward with final engineering on the site. So what we anticipate is that we will be coming before you in the next few months for a final development plan. I encourage them to go ahead and get this portion wrapped up prior to that, in case it was an issue for them moving forward about the side loaded garages. They want to be able to offer them on all of these lots. But it does require modification to the side yards the way that we have them today. Today we have it, was it 12 and a half, 12 and a half, right? Their house, the way they do their house, it's either the garage comes out the front or comes out the side. They just, it's AC/DC, I guess. So to do that, what we need to do, and that's what's explained in this whole thing, is scoop the house. So 5 feet off the one property line, and then we get all the room on the other side for a driveway. So that's the impetus for one of the divergences is for that, so that we can offer that then on every lot. One of the things that we discussed with the trustees is that in no case will we ever have 5 foot to a 5 foot, we'll have a 10-foot building separation. Once somebody picks a side loaded garage, that's what stays in that row. So if they're all east, they're all going east. Okay, so ultimately we have more than 25 feet in between each house when you start doing the math. But we didn't want to have 10 feet separation because that didn't look right. And then if we get somebody that wants to have a front loaded garage, they still fit in on a normal lot with the 12 and a half. That's why we put a minimum in there of 17 and a half in case there's somebody that wants to have just a front loaded garage. So 17 and a half would be the minimum building separation that we would ever have with this configuration and this request for divergence. And in most cases, it's 25 feet or greater. Just the way that the math works out on the size of the house and the size of these lots. I don't know if you look at, if we go through, I don't know how much you want to go into this stuff, if that made sense or not. But there are 2 divergences, maybe there's 3. The divergences that we have to ask, a reduction in the required setback, to allow for a 5 foot on a side loaded garage, on one side only. So then our total setbacks would equal 25 feet or greater total. So if we ask for 5, we still have at least 20 on the other side. And then, the other divergence is the side yard setback for a garage, for the pavement. That came out actually in the zoning code after we filed. This wasn't filed with that zoning code, but I don't know if that means that this still complies. So we asked for that divergence. Anyway, before you didn't have any regulation on how far a driveway could be from the side yard property.
Now it's 5 feet.
That's what I think.
Yeah, so the new code is 5 feet, and we're asking for it to go down to 2 feet in this instance on these. And again, that will still be 7 feet over to the next house. So that's what we're really asking for, and it's a few lots. Well, it's all the lots that would accommodate that current condition today. So all of these that are in blue is the divergence, the lots that we would ask for that divergence to be granted on. But what that allows is the exhibits that Mason actually has put together for us, which really kind of starts explaining it. The front page is, here we've got a bunch of houses and the garages, except for maybe a few occasional ones. But I think where you really start seeing it is on the 3rd page on how that works. Is how we tuck the house to the one side, we have the garage, and then the driveway onto the other side. Then we just mimic that down to the rest of the row, to all the other ones. And again, if somebody wants a normal front-loaded house, then they stand with the normal setbacks, and then at that point, they can pick up again with the side-loaded garage. At that point, you could actually switch directions because we would still be in compliance with that 17 and a half feet that we put into the text. And again, that was the safeguard that the trustees really wanted. They didn't want to see 10 feet. We don't want to ever see 10 feet. So, well, we don't either, because these are $800,000 homes. But we want to obviously offer the ability for side-loaded garages on every one of these if we can. So, once we got through the explanations and stuff with the trustees, I said, well, this is technically a change in the character because you're going from front of the garage to side of the garage, and you're actually changing the location of the house, which I think those are criteria and the determination to measure minor, so you have to go to you guys, and then I guess go back if we gain your approval tonight. So, to me, it's fairly simple. We've been dealing with it in our heads for a few months. I don't know if it is for you guys, and I obviously do my best to explain it if that didn't explain it to you guys or not. Took me a little while to grasp it in my mind until I started seeing some pictures. So. Okay.
Levi, I'm gonna ask you, so our amended driveway requirements didn't happen until what, last June?
Yes,
And are they under control?
that's a good question.
Does it go by filing date or approval date? Because we did approve the.
Different places could do it differently. This isn't generally something we come up with. I would say that if you're okay, if you decide you're okay with the side of the garages, you're probably okay with the 2 feet driveway setback.
Right.
There's a lot of houses that the driveways are either on the property line or
Right.
shared driveways over the property line,
Or
yeah.
not.
Yeah, I mean, you could just go ahead and approve it as a divergence
Okay.
in the language, but I don't think it's a huge deal.
How many of these do we have that sort of straddle our
Everything that comes in is,
real?
not everything that comes in, but there's always something in a application that could be considered gray area we haven't maybe dealt with a lot before. I think this one's pretty simple for the most part.
I just wondered if they need to ask for divergence for that.
Yeah, and, we were literally the last application before you went through a one-step process. So we're under that, so if you apply that,
Then it's not a
Then it's
divergence.
not, yes, because we don't love divergences, so
yeah.
we start counting how many, which.
So now we have one, I think, now we have one, but, this one we had 0 on.
Right.
And, we got somebody that's going to like, no, it's even better.
No, I just kind of wondered,
It's the-
administrative thing.
Yeah,
Give you questions?
The first question that I'm gonna ask,
what?
why can't we just take a couple lots out and then,
You want to have, you want to have,
then we just need to have money? But no, seriously, in all seriousness, I think this is gonna be a beautiful community, but what does concern me is that we've got like 60 lots. Only 32 of the lots would not require a divergence. And everyone's not going to be putting the side load garage on this. But that's a lot. And what I do get nervous about is, will it start to look awkward? Like, I completely understand pictures, and probably that. It's more so, I don't know, I get worried that some of these lots, so when you look at 46 through 53, the lots are so small, and 78, 74 through 69 as well. Those are like the 10,000 square foot lots. And, specifically 47 through 52, and then you've got a couple of 86, 87, 53. Those are already really small lots, and those are the ones that I really get nervous about as well. Now, obviously, I know you're not going to do you're not limitations as far as what you can do on those lots, but I do I do go to, like, would it be better for the community to take out a lot in the middle of each, so along road B and along road A? The A that curves up around, so somewhere in that 50 and 70, say. that was where my head kept going to when I looked at this, is because those are already, lot 70 is the same, it's didn't know that one for some reason. But with that, obviously cuts into your margins. But with that, a better way, not just to get around a divergence, because it's not as much, the small divergence isn't what concerns me, it's more just the amount of lots overall that it's going to affect. Does that make sense? So it could be 3/4 of your community in reality, which is something that I'm not crazy about. So I think if you were to pull out that, then you're gaining 80 feet on both sides, you could add and increase the lots just slightly to get a better situation. Specifically, like I said, 36 to 52 and 53, and then really it's that 68, 69, 77. That's where my head is. And I don't want to hear that.
No, it's, we only have to do what, we got a version or whatever. At that point, I don't know, on Drew's standpoint, that doesn't seem to make, and that, to me, that doesn't make much sense from my standpoint. To lose lots, we're still giving you over 25-foot zoning separation, so the divergence isn't that we're crowding things anymore, we're just pushing it to one side or the other. I could see if our house was actually gonna get bigger and we were reducing stuff, but we're not. It just happens to be that their house, the way that they flip their garage, it is different. Each builder is unique, but some of them have them where the garage is set back, or they'll have it sticking frontwards, and theirs isn't like that. I mean, this is kind of unique to them. Yeah. So, my guess is it would be Mason's last day with Drew's homes if he were to agree to lose some lots. That I don't know.
I would say at this point where we're at, although we're looking for a divergence to get all lots changed, that's just us trying to open it up within the community to spread them out throughout the community. We're not saying that every single lot is going to have it, but where we're at right now, we need the ability to allow for it so that we can start outlining the community and seeing what the true is going to look like. And now's the point in time that we, need to get that modification.
I understand.
So.
That's, like I said, that's where my head goes to. Obviously, we already approved you guys. It's just that's where my mind goes to.
Sir, could you give me your name and address, please?
Mason Ward, 211 Grandview Drive.
Which company are you
Drew's
with?
Homes.
Drew's Homes.
The driveway, I mean, that's not a problem. It just is more, I'm concerned about overall, especially in that middle section, how small the lots already are and what that's gonna mean when you put, when you do get to that point, if you do have quite a few in a row that start to move that way, will it?
No, that to me the trustees love that thought. that they don't say any garages. They actually.
Yeah, I love not seeing garage doors. But
And I don't think it's repetitive. Again, you've got, whether it's this, or you got 5 feet more on the lot, or whatever, I don't think we're really going to notice that, to be honest. Because that's what you're going to end up, when you take out an 80-foot lot, spread it between 20 lots, what are you going to get? 5 more feet?
yeah, I'm looking on each.
Are you going to notice that driving through there? No, probably not. Especially once the trees grow up and, and we could also push some of these things into the open space. We're well over our open space, we're at 38%.
Yeah,
We could push those into open space and get rid of open space if you want to do.
well, some of your open space there is basin.
Yeah.
So you can't go to basin, so,
Yeah.
yeah. you'll be getting, yeah, and really, you're pretty limited as to where you are at right now because of the basins and the easement with the power lines, so, yeah. That's what I had.
Okay.
Jasper, how about you?
I mean, I had the same kind of concern around, it's a lot of possible divergence lots. Now, I do understand that you want the availability. It doesn't mean that you are going to get every single person that buys every one of those lots to do a side load. I did notice, and that was my question, you kind of mentioned it, kind of in your early thing, was the east, first guy picks east, everybody gets east. The first family, she decides west, everybody gets west as far as what's at the driveway. That's not really spelled out in here.
It is with the 17.5 foot separation, so we threw that.
Okay. Now that you explained it, I get that, and that was kind of the one that I was not sure how the math was gonna work. The pictures also help out from the standpoint of helping me understand what it's gonna look like. I don't love the idea of that many lots with the divergence, but I know we also dictate that you have to have at least 25% of your lots have a side in the garage, so I think this gives you a little bit better chance, because I think we only earmarked maybe half of that, so 11, when we did the original
Yeah,
approval.
and the ones that aren't marked, obviously, we can do that, we can do that today.
And those are, like, a couple of them are included in what you're showing.
Yeah.
Up in the front there.
Yeah, those three, and those actually, if we needed to make those lots, I suppose, a couple feet bigger.
So, I mean, I look at it as, we earmark you have to have 22, you're asking to possibly put them in 66. I think it'll help you move it around and spread them out. It also probably pushes it more to, it gives you a little bit better availability to go over the 25% instead of maybe just meet it, because that's what you want to do.
Well, they want to.
Yeah, so, I would love the idea of taking out a lot to get more space, but I think one lot, to your point, the 5 feet, I think you wouldn't really, I think the way you want to orient it with the driveways, and once the first family picks which side, they all follow that same pattern. I think you'll get the overall look that we want, and you have the possibility to maybe improve upon the 25% side load. So again, I don't love it, but I understand it. I think I'm torn a little bit, but I'm probably pushing to be okay with it. Now, the driveway, the 2 foot thing, I think that's just semantics. As I said, if we didn't really look at it in the original hearing, it wasn't really a thing that came up. It may be our code now, but I think we can, I like having it called out just in case. And that way we know that, because then I don't want the plans coming in and we might get one and it's on the property line, and now what does he do? Because we didn't call it out specifically what you could and couldn't do. So I like having it in there as opposed to just hoping that it was grandfathered. So.
Yeah,
I will say, as an out-of-town builder, you guys probably aren't super familiar with trees. But we've been around for almost 100 years, and I know everyone probably comes and tells you that, we pride ourselves on our communities and whatnot, but New Jersey truly does have some really awesome looking communities, based out of Wilmington, Kentucky, and Cincinnati, so, we also want it to look amazing. So I don't know how much that would help, but, we've been around for a while, so.
have you been with the company the whole time?
All 100. All 100.
Yeah, and looking through, you get some more exhibits on the types of homes now that you actually have more of a builder than the previous time.
Yes.
And I think that helps with the pictures and telling the story of what you're asking for is a divergence, but I think at the end of the day, the overall concept of the neighborhood look, I think is going to fit. I don't like the divergence, but you're asking what you're asking. So.
Yeah, and part of me is well, just to continue that thought process, a lot of, you don't, but a lot of places have, 5 foot minimum, 25 foot total. It just makes me wonder if some of our PUD language would capture that better, because you're still getting your 25 foot building separation. You're just pushing it to one side of the lot or the other. It's not uncommon. It's just not knowing who your builder is. Like when we commit, we don't, you got Holte, and they don't need it because the way that they build theirs is they do something different, but they don't, and you're kind of not stuck with, but that's how they do it. So that's why I wanted them to go ahead and do this before they do the whole thing.
The only thing I was thinking is I can't remember if it was you or not that we had talked about this in another community, but doing driveway to driveway and some of those smaller lot sections. So doing driveway to driveway and then like a forward facing, and then it almost looks like there's a bigger gap between those two houses, so it doesn't look as cookie cutter, east,
Right.
That way you've got more of an open space in between those two. I don't know if that's an option. So it would be like,
That could happen probably on the ones that aren't earmarked, because there's enough room already that they can flip them on both sides. It's just for us to maintain over a 10-foot building separation. When we pair them together, we need another pair, probably.
so just
So,
like this, take this one, put it here.
yeah,
Then
no,
you
I
have
understand
that,
what you're saying, that's,
17.5, and
yeah,
then, on the other side of that, you flip it.
right.
Just to give it a little bit more, not as cookie cutter, but in those smaller lot sizes where it's very narrow, it might give a bigger feel in between the houses.
Yeah,
And within this, that would be possible with the 17.5, because then you could go front load and then you could, again, do what you're saying. So,
it just depends on, how many of the front loads we have versus the sides. So, but I can't predict that. No, I mean, it's a great idea. That way you don't have a bunch of driveways, a repetitive driveway.
Because I was thinking on that, like where Angela was saying the 69 through 74 and the 46 through 51, where there's those smaller, not on the curve, the straightaways, that if you did, match, meet in the middle, front load, meet in the middle, front load. You only have basically two front loads right there. On your side of the street.
So like in that instance, lot 68 and lot 71 would need to be front loads for us to be able to do the two, if the garages came together, so we would still maintain 17.5 feet building separation, which is possible. It's just very hard to predict that, but I mean,
So I often think about too, as I don't know what's right here in somebody's house. Is this a master bedroom up top? And you're right next to a driveway where kids play basketball. But if you have two driveways together, it's not so much noise on the driveway side of things. The only other real call out I had, which would be for probably final development plan, was the railroad mounding and trees. I don't know if you want me to touch on that.
you can,
I know it was
because I thought we'd already updated anything to that.
approved, but it has 4 to 6 foot mound, and then it says 4 to 6 foot earthen mound with continuous planting of mixed evergreen and deciduous trees. It says for our requirements, it says plus continuous 6 foot continuous planting hedge wall fence or earth mound. So I don't know if with deciduous trees, you're not really getting that
Right,
And it's planting.
yeah.
That was my only
Yeah.
thought, just because you're bordering the railroad. So close to the lot 32, 31. And I probably called that out last time.
Yeah, all that stuff gets called out, final development. And I think at Lusher, we shared that information.
Like I said, I probably mentioned it.
Yeah, 'cause I know we talked about it before.
But just I know we talked about the boundary to the church.
Yes, and getting rid of some of the long, tall grass and just having it mown and, we spent a lot of time on the road.
I mean, we don't love divergences always, but you're still maintaining the same minimum separation and setbacks. Just shift it a little bit side to side. I can't say I have a problem with it. Sure, we'd love you to take out 2 lots, but we also realize you are meeting our density requirements, so. I like the idea of more side-loaded garages being an option. So overall, I'm really okay with the whole thing.
Some of them will be 17.5.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, say that
Some of
again.
the structures will be 17.5.
Right, right. That's all I got. All right, we have some audience members. So if you would like to be part of our conversation, just let us know. Give your name, address, and what the comments are. No, nothing? Just observing? Okay. And sir, you came in late. I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to sign in on our roster. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm assuming you guys would like to have a vote tonight on your application amendment, I guess, is that what we're calling it? Yes. Modification.
major modification.
Major modification.
Can you take down one note for me though? On your, where you have, it's not. 47 on C1. It calls out that 47 is actually 1,096 feet instead of 10,160 feet.
47. Yeah.
Thank you.
How can you?
So we can update that, yes.
Thank you.
So just hold on.
Really small lot. Yep, 400 square foot house then. Like that.
That's the great part.
Yeah, tiny house. That's the tiny house right there.
6 stories high.
6 stories high.
This is my house. Was that one in
Still
California?
on the 35.
Yeah, everyone.
Don't get any of these.
Yeah, no.
We're gonna go ahead and make a, proposal in writing.
Actually,
You give it again?
making a motion to approve development plan designated as BZC 24-006 553 zones to 11 Grandview Drive, Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. That requested to amend the side yard setback requirements to allow for more side entrance garages. Parcel is plus or minus 62.177 acres at 4183100104700 South Cheshire Road and West Pyatt Road 2338 Cheshire Road, Delaware, Ohio 43215.
I'll second that.
Ms. Shields?
Yes.
Ms. Capper?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. DeFisher?
Yes.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Presentation, Tony?
Continue.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you for your final.
I'll talk to you tomorrow. Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
All right, so we still have more meeting. And discussion possible ones, zoning resolution, that is sent out. Deadline for that. I'm not sure, can we connect to the Wi-Fi here?
I think there's a guest Wi-Fi, but I don't know what the password is.
I've tried to connect them.
I have to figure it out.
Well, I was gonna go look at the red lines, but I don't think I can connect them. So, how should we discuss?
I think we are ready to probably start the process. We can also make changes throughout the process. Or we can start it at the next meeting, but I think.
I did see a couple things that we were asking about, whether somebody could join BIO later, and the advice you got was yes. What's the process for that
Same as rezoning.
though? Okay,
They don't have to come in with a plan because it's an overlay, just we want to incorporate our property into the overlay. Scott gave me the recommendation that it should only really be approved if it's adjacent to other parts of the overlay. Or if it's a substantial chunk of land, because obviously the way the overlay is written, you really have to develop quite a few acres in order to take advantage of it.
and then at the very end, I don't think we discussed this last time, but maybe we did, but it had layouts for all of where truck bays are. And I don't think when we adopted the BIO, we had different language, it says this is new.
I didn't make any changes to the BIO or BCO. That is exactly
What is that part then with the bays for the truck?
that is like the architectural and safety criteria for the loading bays. I'm not sure.
Is it for the overall zoning code then, not the fire?
I think it's just for the BIO and the BCO. I don't think there's a lot
Because
of,
that was, we ran into trouble with that, with an applicant a couple of years ago. That our language was very restricted about how many days they can have. And this looked like those restrictions are gone,
okay.
which may or may not be a good thing. I just didn't know where in the process that happened. or where-
I don't know. I can find out and look in the last code.
Interesting.
Yeah, because their comment was that it was extremely restrictive.
This did not look nearly so restricted. In fact, this looked like a bag of wire. Once again, I just kind of wondered. I think we did need to make a modification, but wasn't sure. There was dialogue about that.
Yeah.
Jerry, I don't know.
GRA, my encyclopedias and zoning.
Yeah, I think we clearly
Yeah.
could use some updates on that.
I think Jerry will probably remember that discussion.
Okay.
I know part of it at least was when he was, I think part of it maybe he was in Florida for, but not,
Okay.
that lasted over many meetings, so.
Okay.
I don't remember what else it is. Anybody else? Anything stick out to you, Levi, that we should talk about?
I think I incorporated or made an effort to incorporate all the changes we talked about at the last meeting when we discussed it. I even put in some placeholders for some of the stuff we talked about, so once we start the process, Scott will have something to review and make recommendations on.
Okay. And then, the one thing we haven't nailed any nails in yet is landscaping. So, any language for that, or how extensively thinking we need to be? And can we help you? Is there something we can do to?
Well, I guess it's determining whether we want it to, how extensive we want it to be, because I think a lot of what we're finding issues with is property, like the difference between boundary, like buffer zones and actually categorizing things. Like one thing I noticed with tonight that I was thinking about was like the railroad and the commercial, like technically the church I think is R185, the temple.
It may just be a farm still.
But is it considered a commercial entity? So then would we have to, because the actual building itself is,
Churches are not considered, they're exempt from like everything.
I know they're exempt tax-wise,
Yeah.
but the building itself is, I believe is considered commercial.
They're probably handled at, building safety as commercial for sure.
So then would our boundaries and our buffer zones require it to, like if it's a residential and they're backing up to a commercial property, are they backing up to FR1?
I don't think it's based on what the building is considered, it's zoning to the property. So if the building's considered commercial, I don't think that matters. If the property's zoned FR1, we treat it as FR1.
See, that's where I think we're that. Maybe I've misread in a lot of zoning resolutions then, because, for example, when they were talking about the, I'm just trying not to misspeak, when they were talking about like their noise, when they have their parties and the vehicular use areas, and that lends more.
We don't treat the schools like they're commercial, and I don't think there's a drastic difference between a temple and a school as far as how we would treat them. Similar parking requirements, similar amount of people. Obviously, the timing is a little different on when people are utilizing it, but.
So, okay, that makes sense. Okay, no, that's helpful. I think it's really updating the language in here and how it's written in the table, which I started to do, and I see you. Because I don't think it's read very easily. And I did make some updates to it the first time around, some of it, but I just, there's so many different areas of landscaping that
Yeah.
you could go into weeds, you could go into, I don't even know where to begin.
Well.
Like what seems to be the most painstaking, and I've asked this before from like the trustees, what's painful about the landscaping that?
From like after like I'm trying to, because I think I understand what you're asking. So like after the fact, like what do we get complaints about from neighboring properties, or what do people that live in the subdivisions have complaints about?
No, like what do we, when people come as far as to the trustees or to our board, what's in question the most? Like from our resolution, like what don't people understand or what? And it could also be.
Most architects have handled the landscaping portion pretty well. I don't think it is kind of hard to understand, but compared to some other places, those are really, really hard to understand. I'm trying to think, I was thinking of it from like an after the fact, what have I learned from people, neighbors and people that live in these communities, their complaints, and it's like fit and finish, generally types of trees on tops of the mounds, they're like, obviously like pine trees die fast. It's just, I definitely have dealt with probably 10 or 12 since I've been here, just calling developers or HOAs like, hey, you need to replace these pine trees in this open area because neighbors are complaining, or the people that live in, that pay your HOA are complaining.
Okay.
So,
That's my
so
feedback.
then the species list, like the banned species list. is
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah,
And probably a preferred.
yeah, I think a preferred species list would be ideal. And maybe if we have like, these are what we prefer on mounds, and this is what we prefer in areas that aren't adjacent to really.
Like street trees.
Yeah, the street trees list.
It seems like we talk a lot about street trees, but
Well, they're not street trees, they're yard trees for us.
Yeah.
They try to put those things in the yard.
probably more like boundary separation,
Mhm.
it's more that buffering. So that you don't end up trying to build back to the edges and then you just don't have any left to buffer. So it's more the mounding, trees, kind of thing, to try to break it up to not just have it be flat land with housing or a building right back up to it.
And making sure we have specifics around mounting and where, so like you said, along the train tracks, making sure we have plenty of mounting there. And then that it's called out as to if it is train tracks, maybe is that only 6 feet, if they can get up to 6 feet with the amount of land that they need, right? But then if it's simply neighboring, like, I look at this out here,
Mhm.
and I wish that was, different.
Mhm.
I don't know if the people that are on the road, if that's up to the road, I don't feel like they have enough privacy. And it feels like you have too much visibility into
The public road.
yeah. So I think when it comes down to public roadways and, houses that back up to public roadways, kind of buttoning that up a little bit more and calling out that maybe that's what we need to have, in addition to that mound, maybe it needs to be a little bit taller, maybe we need to put more trees on it, right, whatever type of pine tree, that we're calling out, hedges,
Like evergreen
something
hedges.
to truly, like I look at, and granted, it's in Orange Township now, but, well, it's in Orange Township, but I look at, the area as you're going over to Evans Farms on the Center Road. And it's funny because I remember, it didn't feel like that one years ago, those trees were like small.
Mhm.
And now the way that it's filled out, like, I would love for something like that to look more like as you're approaching.
And here you've got deciduous trees with leaves fall off.
Yes. And so I remember thinking, my gosh, it's gonna take years for those trees to go in, right? But once they did, they truly were planting close enough together and that's where, I don't know, that we have the knowledge of how close they should be, but you have.
And that's right.
Background.
And I think here they talk about the per linear foot, and then they say they do not have to be equally spaced, but maybe grouped. So it's like they do
Yes.
3 and then there's, 20 feet of
Exactly.
space. Well, that's not gonna.
No, that's not gonna help, no.
But it says to equal the opacity in some of them. So I mean, some opacity requirements apply and some don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's helpful.
Could we make the opacity like more standardized?
Well, and I think I did in that chart, like I said, more specifically to the boundary. I didn't get to street level yet, but when it came to like industrial to residential or even industrial or residential to commercial, I said like 90% opacity.
Yes.
So where it was a lot, it had to be, evergreens so that you've got a good
And then buffer.
a buffer. I mean, it's like even behind our house, it's a lot of old woods. It's a pretty deep wooded area, but it's not a lot of evergreen. So winter, you can see right through to the street, So it does, opacity does make a big difference in using those evergreen trees. And there are faster growing, evergreens, there are slow growing evergreens, so we can put that in the preferred list to be able to say, if you're planting near the road for blockage, these are the ones you should use.
Yeah.
You mentioned that they die, evergreens die, is that because they're on?
Well, no, there's just been some around here, we have like the blue spruce
Blue
blight,
spruce,
and then like,
Prizes.
people tend to plant white pines too close together, and then they look great in 10 years, and then in 15 years, the bottoms all die. And then it's just like having deciduous trees. So you gotta kind of shoot for a time frame too, when somebody comes in with a landscaping plan, it's like, we know it's not gonna look good right away, because first they're building a development for 5 years, 3 to 5 years. So you're shooting, so when you get to like that 10-year mark, when everything's starting to mature, it just looks really good. But you're not gonna get that right up front generally. I wouldn't expect it to happen.
And that's why we asked for like certain heights or certain calibers of trees, because
To kind of speed up the
to
process.
speed up the process, but also allow time for maturity. Because putting a little baby pine in, it's big. I see
So I
what
remember
people put this
Hardwood
in.
Point, which got developed, oh my gosh, 1998,
I
I think.
drove through that the other day.
Well, the side on 3 BZC at least, they had a large green space, and I was sitting over there in those days, right? And we asked for actually 2 rows of trees, staggered. Honestly, the thought being that they were gonna widen 3 BZK at some point, which is still 30 years later, has not happened. But if there's space, sometimes having, just 2 rows
Mhm.
helps to,
And that's, I think,
because they're gonna grow and fill out, but at least in that intermediate time.
You can
Same thing with the mountain.
Part where they don't die.
same thing with mounding is, doing like the teardrop shapes,
Yeah.
so that they overlap. And
Yeah.
Right. So we can always suggest that the preferred list though is not anything enforceable, right? It's just.
You can have a band tree list. There's a lot of places that'll be like, no silver maples, no pin oaks, like stuff like that. It's just generally dirty trees.
Yeah,
I don't tell you guys
it's like
now.
the honey look.
Yeah.
I did give a list of, band,
Okay,
I
good.
started one.
No Bradford pears.
Yeah, that one,
Yeah.
they're paying to take down now in Brigham County. But, it's just like the honey locust, that was like the street tree and all intended to happen, and they are just like shedding all the leaves. And two, while I truly believe they do have landscape architects that, design their, plans, sometimes I think they just throw in
Yeah.
stuff, and they put in, a huge swamp oak in the middle of a street, in between a curb and a sidewalk. I'm like, like, so we can, I can definitely work on that list of, and I'll categorize it by, mounding trees and boundary trees and street trees.
So are there other portions of this, that's section 26? Like the landscape buffer zones and the vehicular use area, further requirements, any of those things that you've looked at, or is this more about?
I did. I changed some of it the first go around.
I was thinking we don't need to do that, but if we're doing this, I guess, is any of that on the table, or do we need to do it?
I just think making those tables better and easier to read.
Yeah.
Because one of the things we've heard from developers, not about us necessarily, but did the very, very detailed landscape thing. They just kind of look at it and don't even know where to start. So we want to make it user friendly, easy to do, take my numbers. So I don't know, what kind of table would be better, or is the table not helpful?
think we talked about doing like a flow chart almost, kind of like where your boundary needs. But I'll see what I can come up with. But I think everything else was, I think what's hard is that everything in each district goes to 26, and so everything is encompassed in 26, where they're looking
They're
at.
trying to cover so many different
Yeah.
scenarios.
And they're looking at their, section 11 for what they need, and then they have to go to 26, and they're overwhelmed by, but that keeps us from having to update
Every section.
every section every time.
Do we say that in each section though? We see section
Mhm.
26 too,
Landscape, yeah.
so it's not like they don't know.
Yeah, they know, but section 26, like Tara was saying, just covers like, there'll be something there's a whole section about what's buffering or what's along commercial or whatever. It might not apply to them, but they go through it anyway.
Excuse me. Sorry. And I know we had touched on like page 2610 has the prohibited trees. I know I changed some of those. Like the evergreens 5 feet high with a minimum caliper of 1 3/4 inches immediately after planting. So maybe it's repetitive in some places too, but I mean, it covers a lot.
I don't think repetition's bad as long as it's
Consistent.
Consistent, yeah.
Also, yeah, just like you can take a drive around and see where they put their effort into their landscaping and where they don't. And maybe, I don't know, encouraging them to put that effort into all of the open spaces or entrances. Some entrances get these really nice mounds and trees, and it's like protect from the headlights and stuff. And other ones that are less traffic or secondary entrances don't get the same attention.
So my question too, I know I've asked this before. Do we follow up after a development is completed to?
Up to now, we don't, but we are working on a protocol to be able to do that.
Because I feel like that's a little bit of where we get into, I don't want to say trouble is not the right word, but accord is because we say we do this divergence, we do these little divergences here and there, and then we end up not following up with them to make sure that they've, done it. And I just feel like it's a lot of work into something if we're not following through.
We are working on a plan to be able to kind of follow the whole process and make sure everything is done to the plan that was approved and then the engineering that's approved. As of right now, we're following up on ponds, because that's obviously a pretty important part of the drainage system. Roads, sidewalks, driveways, infrastructure related stuff. But as far as the manpower and the time, it's just not going to be out there. There's so many developments and so much going on, it'd be a lot. And then to get done the regular stuff, so.
Is there,
Other entities would they utilize a secondary engineering firm and have an inspector out there for the building and the whole thing, and then the developers would pay for that. Like, the engineering firm would bill us, and then we just send the bill to
do developers still go through Delaware County and have to go through their engineering too? So
Yes, so
would they be
all the roads and sewer are inspected by them, but they won't inspect anything outside of the public infrastructure.
So anything that's actually important to their code, they're not paying attention to.
But we are, our relationship with the county is definitely changing and improving and growing. I wouldn't say our dependence on them, but our ability to work with them to do things. So that might be something that we could pay a small fee and there'd be more of an inspection for that in the future. I'm not sure. But I know our IT is about to be going through Delaware County and things like that. So there's definitely some changes happening at the county level to that stuff. I think we went and did a tour of the records retention place, and I think we're working on some records retention plan stuff that's going to improve our storage, allow us to have more office space. So that's a good example of things happening. I'd love it if that could happen with engineering too. They're also understaffed, so it's a double-edged sword for them.
Yeah, because a couple places I know didn't complete a few things before they turned it over to the HOA. So no one's no longer on the hook for it. Now the HOA is, which is really unfair because it's the building that we've approved.
The financing,
So that's always sad to see.
And what's the one on South Creek on Africa Road? And I bankrupt, I forget the development, right across from Sherman Lakes.
oh, states, well, there's the states of Sherman Lakes and Sherman Lakes.
And it's toward the reservoir side. I forget what it's called, but
Wait, you mean all the expensive houses?
yes, that one.
Who went bankrupt?
The original developer went
Oh,
bankrupt, the second developer went bankrupt. A lot of the stuff was not done. So the county actually had to call in the bond, so the way it was finished, because the county can only utilize the money in the bond to finish it. So they just do what they have to do to get it operational. And so it doesn't meet the plan. But there's nobody to site because
Right.
the county had to cash in the bond and finish it. So there's no fountain in the one pond, the mounting's different than approved and stuff like
So
that.
they don't use the bond money to do those commitments?
Well, they
have money.
they have to use the money in the way to get the most feasible way to get everything operational. So
Wow.
they used all the money, but it wasn't enough to get everything completed.
Well, the bond's probably taken out a couple years before the
Yeah.
work, so
Yeah.
you're losing money.
Yeah, it's just not a good situation, and that's a good example. And you can drive through there and see it. I mean, it's pretty evident.
Wow,
It's just sad, because
It's a beautiful neighborhood. It's very nice, but then you can just look at the pond and see, look, this isn't finished how they wanted it.
Is the HOA held responsible?
I don't even know if there is an HOA.
Oh.
I don't think that there is an HOA.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Yeah.
So who pays the electric on, well, I guess there's no fountain,
There's
but.
no fountain.
There's no streetlights.
Okay, well, interesting, darn, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Huh, okay. Can we help you? What can we do? There's a lot on your shoulders. I don't know. She's got the expertise. Okay. Just start compatibles. Okay. If you need something, call me.
Yeah, email me. I'll do whatever I can.
See what we can do. Our next meeting is, yeah, June, my gosh, June 10th. Do we have stuff scheduled?
There is the Ravinia at Devon's Farm is scheduled, but I have not gotten updated books that they were supposed to give me yet, so there's a good chance that we table and we need to do that.
Okay.
But we'll have to at least open the hearing.
Right. Okay.
So they will come, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
they'll have somebody here,
okay,
Even if they don't have.
even if they don't have material.
okay.
Well, if we can do some landscaping at night, that'd be great. Or is that other things? You're not even sure you're coming? Okay.
You can, yeah, if you forward it to me or something, I can print it and hand it out to everybody.
Or I'll forward it on email to everybody.
Perfect.
So we think for video, we know we're video, we're just not sure what. Any others, any new business legally? Or anybody else?
The last couple of meetings we talked about the warehouses over in Cheshire, how are things?
That
Some of the
is,
things were
yeah, I got your email to that.
back to not very again.
They just changed so rapidly, there'll be a violation and it's gone. And then if you serve that violation, if they move it and bring something back, it starts over. As far as the traffic and blocking the road, I have no control over that. That's the sheriff.
So how do we start holding them more accountable, I guess?
So the problem with that is, and I've been doing some research into this, is it's an NCD, which has pretty loose requirements. It's not a planned district.
Okay.
Moving with the fire department, they're dealing with anything fire related over there. Jesse's working on like the gravel drives, making sure they keep the drainage flowing so the roads don't flood. And that's a constant battle. And Jerry and I are trying to nail down like the paddleboard thing, which they did finally do. It was gone, now it's back. That stuff, that's just constant.
There's like construction rental equipment.
Yeah, it's a construction company, and that's equipment, they don't rent it out, it's the equipment they're using.
They're using,
Yeah,
but like it's in front of the,
yeah,
it's not even behind the, it's awful.
it sucks, yeah, they're not fun to deal with either,
So,
pretty hateful people.
but my question is, oh, they all are. If we're looking under the permitted uses, under the neighborhood commercial, right here, there's nothing, one, of the fertilizing company,
Yeah.
can't manufacture or sell fertilizers.
Yeah.
Then their separate lot now has cars on it all the time, like abandoned cars or like parts cars, which again is not part of that, and it's not part of that front lot either.
Yeah.
That's a different parcel. And then if they applied, and if the permitted uses, if what they applied for is storage, how can they be operating these and having these signs on the building and operating these businesses out of the storage
Yeah,
unit?
I'll check into that, I'm gonna have to call Tony and see what he says. If we can, we can send violations, if he says, go for it.
There has to be something, some other way, because we've been dealing with this for years now. And it seems like it's more of a game
For them.
for them,
100%.
yes. Catch me if you can. So, but all that it does is make everyone spin on this side and waste money, taxpayer money.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, how can we kind of go to the next step of enforcement? Is there, and I want to be careful how I say this, but what is that next step in order to do the enforcement?
So
And,
if I give a violation, say you have a junk car sitting in your yard,
yeah,
and I give you a violation, and it says you need to repair, put tags on, blow up your tires, whatever. And you do it and move it, that violation starts over. And there's people that will play games and they'll just keep moving that car 2 feet at a time. There's nothing I can do about that.
there's nothing legal
Would you
to
say?
do about it
I
at
mean,
all.
if they're keeping tags on it, if the tires have air in
If
it,
it's on the street,
no, on the property.
on the property. If it violates,
No, if they're changing, if they're correcting the violation enough to get rid of the violation,
and then it becomes a violation again.
But there's nothing that says like if it's within 6 months, then it still applies.
No, as
That's
long as
where it
it's
feels
corrected,
like
it's probably right.
Corrected is corrected.
That's where it feels like there's a miss, like if that violation comes back within a set period of time.
The thing about codes is they're always gonna kind of favor the property owner. Because we are, I mean, it's just the way the ORC is set up, and you want personal property rights, we all do.
Yeah.
This one says outdoor storage of inoperable, unlicensed, or unused,
Yeah.
unused vehicles or trailers detached from semi-tractors for a period exceeding 14 days is prohibited. Said vehicles, if stored on the premises, shall be enclosed within a building. So it means it can't sit there. I mean, it's just, it has to be in the building.
Yeah,
So if it moves, it's still sitting on the property, right?
yeah, in my mind, yes, but
Yeah, it seems like it would violate the basic threshold of the,
If it's outside, then it should be inside. If it's not, even if it's moved,
yeah,
if it's not moved to
the
inside.
inside, yeah.
I'll see what I can do over there, and
No trailer of any type, no boats, no motorhomes, and no equipment of any type shall be parked in front of the front setback line of any parcel within this district for a period exceeding 24 hours. If a dwelling is located behind the minimum setback on said lot, setback line shall be considered the front wall of the dwelling. So that'd be in front of that 5163.
I'll see what I can do. It's fun. There's a lot of this all over. It's not just there.
Wow. Not anymore.
And what kind of can of worms? It is can of worms, because then somebody with a camping trailer or something parked in front of their house, their neighbor complains, and then, okay, well, get your boat out, get your camper out here.
That was also what I was gonna suggest, actually, is we live so close to the lake and there is no boat storage allowed. I think that's something that we should change.
No, I don't look at somebody's boat all year. People's boats don't look really very good.
I mean, at least, you know, not the minimum of whatever, 48 hours.
And what are we gonna think in 30 years, all these HOAs and all these restrictions? They're gonna-
Well, it's like, we
There's-
don't have any.
I made the same argument, I was talking to Jerry about this, I said, this town, you live in a township that has a state park, camping, it's a huge pastime, and so is boating, like, there's a lot of really nice
People live
boats
here.
and really nice campers parked in people's driveways. So, I don't necessarily feel comfortable issuing violations to people that have their weekend toy parked in their driveway, like, that seems.
Especially because like, we don't have a dock, so we pull our boat in and out. I mean, mostly we keep it at our shop, but it's
It's a
like,
lot. I mean, it's, some campers, yeah, I mean, you could tell if somebody's keeping their motor camper or trailer around, would have good tags on it.
Right.
And they're in the tires, and generally would have a cover on it.
A lot of times it's a complaint basis, you don't like drive around
Yeah.
looking for stuff.
And then this is something I've also talked to Tony about in this section, and he said, you can have that in your code and you can enforce it, but if somebody chooses not to move their camper or their boat, was legally tagged and titled, and it goes to the judge in Delaware County, he's not gonna be real happy to have to deal with that.
It's a good point.
So there goes our, and that's kind of where our teeth are, it's like, you know,
Is that how you want to spend your time?
or the township dollars, or.
I think, you know, and it goes back to, and I know I say our neighborhood is unique, but it is unique in the fact that like we have super small lots and we can't have sheds. And so, you know, like we don't have the room for an accessory building to have a place to put our boat, you know, it's
I
like,
both park on one time,
you know, so it's just like,
I don't live here,
I
so
think
it's
it's
not
those important, but I think if we keep those things in mind when we talk about like the zoning resolution and we talk about people as they come in, it's just being mindful of, you know, what's reality for people, you know? Reality is we live next to the lake. That's why we bought our house. I can pull I have like less than half a mile from the dock. Instead of parking my boat all the way at storage and then driving it, going out of the water every day and driving it to storage, it's in the front of my driveway, so give me a violation.
And I think a lot of times it's almost, we seemingly kind of let the HOA kind of make that delineation of how they want to address that.
Yeah. There's a few places that the earlier subdivisions, there's a couple that don't have HOAs. Got in trouble, calls them out, a landscaping trailer parked in the on-street parking, and have to call the sheriff.
Wow.
But yeah, usually your HOA would have something about having something parked there.
We did have one that was just only written on one house.
Yeah.
It was recorded on one house only,
When was this built?
2001.
And zoning didn't get involved at all, or how did that happen?
It did, it just somehow got misrecorded and it was only attached to one
I think
house.
Shadow Creek as well.
Wow. The Shadow Creek's over, right? I'm trying to think.
98, I think, 96, 98.
Okay.
They're good, they're nice. It's, builders, they're good.
Got a good to do list.
Thanks, Levi.
Yep.
And how's it going with all the new staff?
It's going well. It gets a little easier every week.
Good. Good. So nobody's run screaming from the building. That's really our pressure.
Oh, they did, but we caught them.
Yeah, it's cool to have a full house.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
it is.
All right.
Everything's
Anything
going
else,
pretty good.
folks? No. Shall we adjourn? Vote we adjourn. Have a second? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Out of here. Okay. Thank you, everybody. See you on the 10th. Hope the weather smiles on us. It's better.
Here's my June schedule next week.
Well, keep us posted.